The massive obsidian doors of the Galactic Council headquarters split open with a sound like breaking worlds. Ambassador David Kane stepped into the vast chamber, his black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the gleaming crystal floor that stretched for nearly a kilometer. Behind him walked General Patricia Ross and Chief Negotiator William Hart, their faces carved from stone as they approached the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. The council chamber rose above them like a cathedral built for gods. Hundreds of alien representatives filled the tiered galleries, their various forms creating a living tapestry of galactic civilization. Crystalline beings that sang with harmonic frequencies, gas clouds held together by electromagnetic fields, and towering insectoid creatures with too many eyes all watched the human delegation with predatory interest. At the chamber's apex, 7 massive thrones held the primary council, the 7 species that had ruled galactic affairs for over 10,000 years. High Commander Vextar of the Dominion Empire occupied the central throne, his reptilian form easily 4 meters tall even while seated. His scales shifted from deep blue to threatening crimson as the humans approached. To his left sat the crystalline Overmind, a being of pure living diamond whose thoughts could shatter moons. To his right, the Hive Queen Morgeth clicked her mandibles in what passed for amusement among her species. Kane stopped at the designated mark carved into the floor, a small circle that had witnessed the judgment of countless civilizations. He looked up at the tribunal without flinching, his blue eyes steady despite the overwhelming display of alien power surrounding him. "Humans of the Sol system." Vextar's voice boomed through the chamber's advanced acoustic systems, each word dripping with ancient authority. "You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for crimes against the established order." The chamber fell silent except for the low hum of gravity generators and translation matrices. Kane waited, knowing that in diplomatic situations, the first to speak often held the weaker position. Vextar leaned forward on his throne, clearly expecting immediate submission. When none came, his scales darkened further. "Your species has existed in galactic space for merely 3 centuries. Yet in that brief time, you have committed acts that threaten the stability we have maintained for millennia." "And what acts are those, Commander?" Kane asked, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber despite its normal volume. A ripple of surprise moved through the alien galleries. Few species dared question the primary council directly. The crystalline Overmind's form pulsed with harsh light as it spoke, its voice like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Your technological advancement exceeds all predictive models. Your military expansion violates the non-aggression protocols established long before your world knew fire. Your diplomatic efforts have destabilized trade agreements that have stood since before your star was born." Kane nodded slowly, as if considering the charges. "So our crime is excellence." A sound like grinding metal came from Hive Queen Morgeth. "Your crime is existing without permission. Your crime is growing too strong, too fast. Your crime is being a threat to galactic order." General Ross stepped forward slightly, her hand moving to rest on a device at her belt. The movement was subtle, but every alien eye in the chamber tracked it with sudden, sharp interest. "But you didn't bring us here just to list our supposed crimes," Kane continued, his voice remaining steady. "You brought us here to deliver an ultimatum. So let's hear it." Vextar's massive form rose from his throne, towering over the chamber like a living mountain. "The Galactic Council has enacted Emergency Decree 1247. Your species represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability. Therefore, corrective measures have been implemented." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "Corrective measures," Kane repeated flatly. 2.7 million of your offspring have been relocated to council facilities," the gas cloud representative announced, its form shifting between colors as it spoke. "They will be raised properly, without the aggressive tendencies that mark your species. In exchange for their proper education and care, humanity will accept technological limitations and population controls." For the first time since entering the chamber, Kane's diplomatic mask slipped. His face went pale, then flushed with barely contained rage. Behind him, General Ross's hand tightened on her device. "You took our children," Kane said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "We secured the future," Vextar corrected. "Your children will become productive members of galactic society. Your species will learn its proper place. This is not negotiation. This is decree." The silence that followed was different from before. Where once there had been diplomatic tension, Now there was something else. Something that made even the most predatory species in the chamber shift uncomfortably in their seats. Kane looked up at the primary council, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a tone that no alien present had ever heard from a supposedly inferior species. Commander Vextar, representatives of the primary council, members of the Galactic Assembly. He paused, his eyes moving slowly across the hundreds of alien faces watching him. You have made what my species would call a tactical error. General Ross stepped forward, her device now clearly visible as she raised her wrist. The message is ready for transmission, Ambassador. Kane nodded once. Send it. The device activated with a soft chime that somehow managed to cut through the vast chamber's ambient noise. Every screen, every holographic display, every communication array in the massive complex suddenly flickered to life. The image that appeared was impossible for the Council to ignore. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of a warship, but not the primitive vessels the Council remembered from humanity's early space ventures. Behind her, through the ship's massive viewports, something extraordinary was happening. Greetings, Galactic Council, Stone said, her face grim with purpose. I am Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Space Navy. 18 hours ago, you made a decision that will define the next 1,000 years of galactic history. The display shifted to show space itself seeming to tear open as dozens of human vessels emerged from what the aliens recognized as impossible stealth technology. These ships were sleek predators, their hulls gleaming with unknown alloys and bristling with weapon systems that made the Council's most advanced warships look like museum pieces. You took our children, Stone continued. You believed this would force our compliance. You believed we were weak, isolated, and unprepared. More ships appeared on the display, then more, until the darkness of space was filled with a fleet that dwarfed anything in Council records. You were mistaken. Vextar shot to his feet, his massive form trembling with rage and something that might have been fear. Impossible. Our surveillance networks monitor all human space. We would have detected such a fleet. Kane smiled, and it was perhaps the most terrifying expression the assembled aliens had ever witnessed. Your surveillance network saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Did you really believe a species that went from steam power to faster-than-light travel in 2 centuries couldn't master the art of deception? The displays around the chamber shifted again, showing tactical readouts that made several Council members gasp in recognition. Human fleets were positioned at strategic points throughout Council space, somehow having bypassed detection grids that had protected galactic civilization for millennia. You have 48 hours, Admiral Stone announced. Return our children to the coordinates we are transmitting now. All of them, unharmed, unchanged. The crystalline overmind's form blazed with angry light. And if we refuse? Stone's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made the temperature in the chamber seem to drop several degrees. Then you will learn why natural selection chose humanity to be Earth's apex predator. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Kane looked up at the primary council, noting how their confident postures had shifted to something approaching uncertainty. Several of the lesser species in the galleries were already whispering among themselves, their diplomatic translators struggling to convey concepts of fear that their languages had no words for. The message has been delivered. Commander, Kane said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. I trust you will give it the appropriate consideration. As the human delegation turned to leave, Vextar's voice cracked across the chamber like thunder. Human, you dare threaten civilizations that ruled the stars when your species was dwelling in caves? Kane paused at the threshold of the massive doors, looking back over his shoulder. The expression on his face was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something in his eyes that made even the Hive Queen's chittering fall silent. Commander, he said quietly, those caves taught us something your advanced civilizations apparently never learned. He turned fully around, and his next words seemed to echo from the chamber's very walls. When something threatens our children, we don't negotiate. We don't compromise. We don't show mercy. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow every being in the vast chamber heard him clearly. We become extinction events walking upright. The obsidian doors closed behind the human delegation with finality, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. Outside their specie, the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the human delegation departed. The vast chamber buzzed with nervous energy, as representatives from hundreds of worlds whispered in languages that translation matrices struggled to interpret. Fear had a universal quality that transcended species barriers, and it filled the crystalline halls like a living thing. High Commander Vextar stood before a massive holographic display showing the impossible human fleet positions. Red dots marked Council installations, while blue markers indicated human vessels that had somehow appeared without detection. The pattern was perfect, surgical in its precision. Every major military base, every supply depot, every strategic choke point in Council space was covered. How? Demanded the crystalline overmind, its form pulsing with agitated light. Our detection grids span 17 galaxies. Nothing moves through Council space without our knowledge. Fleet Admiral Zorak of the Thakri Dominion manipulated the holographic display with his 6-fingered hands. His insectoid features were unreadable, but the rapid clicking of his mandibles betrayed his agitation. These positions were taken over a period of months, possibly years. Look at the deployment pattern. They didn't arrive recently. They've been there waiting. A new voice cut through the chamber's nervous chatter. Perhaps we underestimated human capabilities. The speaker was Council Intelligence Director Velmoth, whose species had mastered the art of information gathering across dimensional barriers. Her 4 eyes never blinked as she studied the tactical readouts. Underestimated? Vextar's scales flashed angry crimson. They are a primitive species barely 3 centuries into space travel. Their longest-range vessels should be incapable of reaching our outer territories undetected. Should be, Velmoth agreed. Yet they are there, which suggests our fundamental assumptions about human technology were incorrect. The chamber's massive screens flickered again, this time showing surveillance footage from the human home system. What they saw made even the most composed Council members shift uncomfortably. Earth's orbital space was filled with activity. Massive shipyards that hadn't existed in previous intelligence reports were working at full capacity. Ships were launching with concerning frequency, their destinations unknown. This surveillance data is from yesterday, Velmoth announced. Note the scale of industrial activity. Either humanity has been concealing their true capabilities for decades, or they have achieved technological advancement at a rate that defies all known models. Hive Queen Morgoth's massive form clicked and chittered as she processed the information through her collective consciousness. The mathematics are troubling. If they can produce vessels at this rate while maintaining perfect stealth capabilities, their true fleet size may exceed our estimates by orders of magnitude. The gaseous representative, Nebula Prime, shifted between colors as it spoke. The philosophical implications are equally concerning. Most species seek Council approval before major technological advancement. Humans appear to have developed significant capabilities while deliberately avoiding our attention. This suggests long-term planning and strategic thinking that contradicts their supposed primitive nature. A new presence entered the chamber. Council archivists were rarely seen during active sessions, but Elder Historian Corvex had requested permission to address the assembly. His ancient species had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations for millions of years. Honored Council, Corvex began, his voice carrying the weight of eons. I have reviewed historical records dating back 12,000 years. I can find no precedent for the current situation. Vextar turned his massive head toward the historian. Explain. Previous upstart species fell into predictable patterns. They either submitted to Council authority when faced with overwhelming force, or they fought brief, futile wars before accepting their proper place in galactic hierarchy. Humans appear to have chosen a third option, which is, they have systematically prepared for total war while maintaining the pretense of peaceful integration. The deception required for such a strategy suggests cognitive capabilities that may exceed our psychological profiles. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had maintained galactic order for millennia through a careful balance of diplomatic pressure and the threat of overwhelming military response. No species had ever been willing to risk total destruction rather than accept Council authority. Admiral Zorak pulled up additional tactical displays. Analysis of their vessel configuration suggests they are designed for one primary purpose: the complete destruction of Council infrastructure. These are not exploration ships or defensive platforms. They are dedicated warships built specifically to fight us. The observation sent ripples of unease through the assembled representatives. Many species had joined. the Council specifically to avoid the kind of total warfare that had consumed their homeworlds in primitive times. The human ambassador mentioned their children, noted psychological analyst Drentar. Cultural studies suggest human offspring bonding patterns are unusually intense compared to most species. They may literally value their young more than their own survival. Impossible, Vextar growled. No rational species would risk extinction for any reason. Commander, Velmoth interjected, humans may not be rational by our standards. Our psychological profiles consistently underestimated their emotional responses. What we interpreted as weakness may actually be their greatest strategic advantage. The Chamber's attention turned to the main display as new intelligence reports arrived. Human fleet movements were accelerating throughout Council space. Ships that had remained hidden were now taking aggressive positions around key installations. The message was clear. The 48-hour deadline was not merely a negotiating tactic. Status report on the human offspring relocation program, Vextar demanded. Security Chief Mexvor activated his personal communicator. The children are distributed across 47 facilities throughout Council space. Each facility is defended by planetary defense grids and stationed fleets. The humans would need to assault nearly 50 worlds simultaneously to recover them all, which they appear capable of doing, Admiral Zorak observed grimly. Their fleet positioning suggests they anticipated our distribution strategy. The crystalline overminds form blazed with frustrated energy. We are the Galactic Council. We have maintained order across 17 galaxies for 10,000 years. We cannot allow a single primitive species to dictate terms through terrorist threats. Are they terrorists or are they parents? Asked Elder Historian Corvex quietly. The distinction may be more important than we realize. His words carried disturbing weight. Every species in the chamber had evolved past the primitive emotional bonds that characterized pre-spaceflight civilizations. The idea that an advanced species might still prioritize individual offspring over collective survival was almost incomprehensible. Recommendation? Vextar asked his senior staff. Military assessment suggests we cannot win a direct confrontation, Admiral Zorak admitted reluctantly. Their positioning is too perfect, their fleet size too large, and their technology apparently superior to our intelligence estimates. Diplomatic assessment concurs, added Chief Negotiator Yexelon. They have not requested negotiations or compromise. They have stated a non-negotiable demand with a specific timeline. This suggests they are prepared for immediate military action. Vextar's massive form settled back onto his throne, his scales shifting through colors that had no human equivalent. The most powerful governing body in galactic history was facing a crisis that their millennia of experience had not prepared them for. Intelligence suggests they have been planning this response for decades, Velmoth continued. The precision of their fleet positioning, the advanced stealth technology, the massive industrial expansion, all of it suggests that humanity has been preparing for this confrontation since first contact. Preparing for what? Demanded the gaseous representative. For war, Corvex answered simply. Total war. The kind that ends civilizations. The chamber fell silent again as representatives considered the implications. Most council species had evolved beyond such primitive concepts as total warfare. The idea that any rational civilization would choose complete mutual destruction over compromise was alien to their thinking. But humans, it seemed, were not rational by galactic standards. What do we know about human military capabilities? Vextar asked. Admiral Zorak manipulated the holographic displays to show detailed analysis of the human ships. Preliminary scans suggest technology that shouldn't exist. Their stealth capabilities exceed our best theoretical models. Their weapon signatures are unlike anything in Council databases. Their ship designs prioritize firepower over all other considerations. They built these vessels specifically to fight us, observed Security Chief Mexivor. Not for exploration, not for defense, for attacking Council installations. The realization was chilling. Most species developed space technology for exploration and trade. Humans appeared to have developed theirs for war. 36 hours remaining, announced the chamber's chronometer system. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching tactical displays that showed the positions of every human fleet element throughout Council space. 24 hours had passed since the ultimatum. 24 hours remained until humanity's children would either be returned or war would consume the galaxy. Status report, Stone commanded. her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. "All fleet elements in position," reported Captain James Morrison from the tactical station. "Stealth fields holding across all groups. Council forces show signs of increased alert status but no significant repositioning." Stone nodded, studying the three-dimensional battlefield that filled the bridge's central holotank. Red markers indicated Council installations, blue showed human positions, and yellow tracked the facilities where Earth's children were being held. The pattern was complex, beautiful in its precision, and absolutely devastating in its implications. "Communications from Sol Command," announced Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the communications array. The main screen flickered to show Admiral Alexander Kane, the architect of humanity's greatest military deception. His weathered face showed the strain of coordinating the largest military operation in human history, while maintaining the pretense of diplomatic negotiation. "Rebecca, how are our people holding up?" Kane asked. Stone glanced around her bridge crew. Every face showed the same grim determination that had characterized human forces for the past 72 hours. These men and women understood what they were preparing to do. They understood the cost. "Morale is steady, sir. Everyone knows what's at stake," Kane nodded. "Council intelligence is working overtime, trying to understand how we achieved our current positions. They're beginning to realize the scope of what we've accomplished, but they still don't comprehend the full implications." "Do they understand that we're serious?" Stone asked. "Not yet. They're still thinking in terms of negotiation and compromise. The concept of total warfare over non-negotiable principles is alien to their mindset." Kane paused, his expression darkening. "That may work in our favor, or it may force us to demonstrate our resolve." The bridge's tactical systems chimed as new intelligence reports arrived. Stone reviewed the data with growing concern. Council fleets were beginning to move not in retreat, but in defensive formations around the facilities holding human children. "Sir, they're fortifying the detention centers," Stone reported. "It looks like they're preparing for siege warfare." Kane's face went pale. "They still think this is about territory or resources. They don't understand that we'll go through any defense, pay any price, accept any casualty rate to get our children back." The communication link shifted to show a wider tactical overview from Sol Command. Dozens of human fleets were positioned throughout Council space, each one perfectly placed to strike at critical infrastructure. But the most important targets were the facilities where 2.7 million human children were being held. "Admiral Stone," Kane continued, "I need you to understand something. The decision has been made at the highest levels. If they harm our children, if they attempt to use them as human shields, we will respond with overwhelming force regardless of collateral damage." Stone felt a chill run down her spine. She had commanded warships for 20 years, but the idea of deliberately targeting facilities holding human children was almost unbearable. "Almost." "Understood, sir. Our children come home where the galaxy burns." Kane's expression was grim but resolute. "The Council still doesn't comprehend what they've awakened. They see us as another upstart species to be controlled through their standard diplomatic protocols. They don't understand that we've been preparing for this confrontation since first contact." The main display shifted to show historical data from humanity's early encounters with Council representatives. What appeared to be routine diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges had actually been intelligence-gathering operations. Every human diplomat, every scientific observer, every trade representative had been collecting information about Council capabilities and weaknesses. 70 years of preparation, Stone observed. Every technological advancement, every fleet expansion, every strategic position has been building toward this moment. And they never suspected, Kane confirmed. They interpreted our rapid advancement as typical post-contact development. They saw our diplomatic efforts as attempts to gain favorable trade status. They completely missed that we were systematically mapping their infrastructure and developing countermeasures for their technology. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Council facility at Kepler 442. It's unusual." Stone nodded for the communication to be put through. The screen showed a human face, but something was wrong. The eyes were too bright, the expression too serene for someone who should be terrified. "This is Dr. Jennifer Walsh, formerly of the Mars Colonial Medical Corps. I am speaking from Council Educational Facility 7 Alpha." The woman's voice was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something artificial about her demeanor. Dr. Walsh. This is Admiral Stone. What is your status? I am well, Admiral. We are all well. The Council has provided excellent care and educational opportunities. I want you to know that the children are happy here. They are learning about galactic civilization and their proper place in the universal order. Stone's blood ran cold. The woman on the screen was clearly human, but something fundamental had been changed. Her personality, her emotional responses, possibly her memories themselves had been altered. Doctor, do you remember Earth? Do you remember your family? Dr. Walsh smiled with an expression that was both human and completely alien. Earth was our beginning, Admiral, but not our destiny. The Council has shown us a better way. The children are adapting well to their new environment. They will become productive members of galactic society. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. They're not just holding our children, Captain Morrison said quietly. They're reprogramming them. Stone felt rage building in her chest like a physical force. The Council hadn't simply kidnapped human children. They were systematically destroying their humanity, turning them into compliant citizens of galactic civilization. Get me a direct line to Admiral Kane, Stone ordered. Within moments, Kane's face reappeared on the main screen. His expression showed that he had received similar transmissions from other facilities. How many facilities have sent similar messages? Stone asked. 14 so far, all showing the same pattern. Adult humans with altered personalities claiming the children are happy and well cared for. Kane's voice was steady, but his eyes burned with cold fury. They're not just holding our children hostage. They're erasing their humanity. The implications were staggering. The Council wasn't planning to return the children even if humanity submitted to their demands. They intended to transform human offspring into something else entirely, breaking the species' continuity across generations. New intelligence from deep reconnaissance teams, Kane continued. The facilities aren't just detention centers. They're psychological conditioning complexes designed to systematically alter human neural patterns. The children are being subjected to advanced brainwashing techniques that will make them loyal to Council authority. Stone studied the tactical displays with new understanding. The 48-hour deadline wasn't just about negotiation. It was about how long human children could be exposed to Council conditioning before the damage became irreversible. How long before the alterations become permanent? Stone asked. Our xenopsychology experts estimate 36 to 72 hours for initial personality restructuring. Complete neural pathway modification could take weeks, but the foundation changes appear to be happening rapidly. The bridge's chronometer showed exactly 24 hours remaining until the deadline. But the real deadline might be much shorter. Admiral, Stone said, her voice carrying deadly certainty. We can't wait for the full 48 hours. Every moment our children remain in those facilities, they're losing more of their humanity. Kane nodded grimly. I've reached the same conclusion. Fleet commanders are being notified that the operation timeline is accelerating. All units should prepare for immediate action if the children show signs of advanced conditioning. The tactical displays around the bridge began updating with new data. Human fleets throughout Council space were moving from defensive positions to attack formations. The time for waiting was ending. What are your orders if Council forces attempt to use the children as human shields? Stone asked. Kane's expression became stone. Our children come home as humans, or they don't come home at all. We will not allow the Council to transform them into something else. The weight of those words settled over the bridge like a death shroud. Every officer present understood the implications. If necessary, humanity would destroy the facilities holding their own children rather than allow them to be mentally enslaved. 24 hours remaining, announced the ship's chronometer. But as Stone watched the tactical displays showing Council defensive preparations, she realized the war might begin much sooner. The Council still thought they were dealing with a rational species that could be controlled through threats and negotiation. The Council emergency session had been running for 18 consecutive hours. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the crystalline chamber, their various forms creating a symphony of nervous movement and agitated communication. High Commander Vextar stood before tactical displays that painted an increasingly dire picture of Council defensive capabilities. Final intelligence assessment, demanded Vextar, his scales shifting between colors that had no equivalent in human perception. Fleet Admiral Zorak, manipulated the holographic battlefield with his six-fingered hands. Human fleet positions have been confirmed at 217 strategic locations. Their technology appears to exceed our capabilities in stealth, maneuverability, and firepower. Most concerning is their apparent ability to coordinate simultaneous operations across multiple star systems. The crystalline overmind pulsed with agitated energy. Coordination across such distances should be impossible without quantum entanglement communication arrays. Such technology requires resources and industrial capacity that humans should not possess. Intelligence Director Velmoth activated additional displays showing Earth's solar system. Latest surveillance indicates massive industrial complexes that were somehow hidden from our observation networks. Estimated production capacity suggests they could maintain current fleet deployments indefinitely while continuing expansion. How did we miss an industrial buildup of this magnitude? Vextar's voice carried dangerous undertones. We didn't miss it, Velmoth replied quietly. We were deliberately deceived. Analysis of historical data suggests humans have been using sophisticated camouflage technology for decades. What we interpreted as normal post-contact development was actually a massive military preparation disguised as civilian infrastructure. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the implications became clear. Not only had humanity hidden their true capabilities, they had done so while actively participating in Council diplomatic and trade relationships. The level of strategic deception required was unprecedented in galactic history. Status of defensive preparations? Vextar asked. Security Chief Mexvor activated his personal display system. All detention facilities have been reinforced with additional fleet elements. Planetary defense grids are at maximum readiness. However, preliminary analysis suggests human forces are positioned to bypass our strongest defensive points through rapid strike capabilities. The tactical display shifted to show simulated attack patterns. Red arrows indicated likely human assault vectors, while blue zones marked Council defensive positions. The pattern was disturbing. Human fleets were positioned to strike at multiple critical points simultaneously, stretching Council defenses beyond their capacity to respond effectively. They're not planning to fight us, Admiral Zorak observed grimly. They're planning to destroy us completely. Hive Queen Morgeth's massive form clicked and chittered as she processed information through her collective consciousness. Analysis of human ship configurations indicates vessels designed specifically for infrastructure destruction. These are not defensive platforms or exploration ships. They are weapons built to end civilizations. The observation sent ripples of unease through the assembled representatives. Most Council species had evolved beyond the concept of total warfare. The idea that an advanced civilization would deliberately design technology for mutual annihilation was almost incomprehensible. Psychological Analysis Update, announced Specialist Drentar. Human communication intercepts suggest they view the current situation not as a political crisis, but as a biological imperative. Their emotional responses to offspring threat appear to override all rational strategic considerations. Meaning, Vextar demanded. Meaning they are literally prepared to destroy galactic civilization to recover their young. This is not negotiation tactics or strategic posturing. From their perspective, they are fighting for the survival of their species. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated the implications. Council authority had always been maintained through rational negotiation, backed by the threat of overwhelming force. They had never encountered a species that valued anything more than survival itself. Elder historian Korvax requested permission to speak. His ancient species had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations across millions of years. Honored Council, I have completed analysis of human historical records. This species has a documented pattern of total warfare when their offspring are threatened. They have repeatedly chosen mutual destruction, over-compromise in such situations. Surely advanced spacefaring civilizations evolve beyond such primitive responses, protested the gaseous representative. Apparently not, Korvax replied. Human advancement appears to have been technological rather than psychological. They retain the emotional patterns that characterized their pre-spaceflight era. New alerts sounded throughout the chamber as communication systems activated. The main display showed Admiral Rebecca Stone on the bridge of a human warship, her expression carrying deadly certainty. Galactic Council, Stone announced. You have been monitoring our communications. So you know that we are aware of the psychological conditioning being applied to our children. This changes the parameters of our previous agreement. Vextar activated his communication array. Admiral Stone, the children are receiving proper education in galactic citizenship. No harm is being done to them. Stone's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made the temperature in the chamber seem to drop. Commander, you are systematically destroying their humanity. This constitutes an act of war against our species. The children are being improved, the crystalline overmind interjected. They will become productive members of galactic society, rather than remaining trapped in primitive human emotional patterns. You have 6 hours, Stone continued, ignoring the interruption. 6 hours to begin releasing our children to the coordinates we provided. If psychological conditioning continues, if any permanent alterations are made to their neural patterns, we will consider this genocide and respond accordingly. The transmission shifted to show tactical displays from human fleet positions. Council representatives watched in growing horror as the scope of human preparation became clear. Every major installation, every supply depot, every population center in Council space was targeted by overwhelming force. This is madness, Vextar growled. You cannot destroy an entire galactic civilization over a handful of offspring. Stone's reply carried the weight of absolute certainty. Commander, you fundamentally misunderstand our species. These are not a handful of offspring. They are our future. They are our genetic continuity. They are quite literally more important to us than our own lives. The communication continued with Admiral Kane appearing alongside Stone. Council representatives, you have based your strategy on the assumption that humans think like other galactic species. We don't. We never have. When our children are threatened, we become something that your psychological models cannot predict or contain. Admiral Zorak studied the human tactical positions with growing alarm. They're not bluffing. These positions would allow them to cripple our entire infrastructure network within hours. Infrastructure can be rebuilt, the crystalline overmind observed. Not if they target population centers. Security Chief Mexivore replied grimly. Analysis of their weapon signatures suggests they have developed technology specifically designed to defeat our defensive systems. They could kill billions before we could mount effective resistance. The chamber erupted in agitated communication as representatives realized the scope of the threat. This wasn't a diplomatic crisis or a territorial dispute. This was potential extinction for dozens of species. What do they want? Vextar demanded. Kane's voice carried through the chamber with chilling clarity. We want our children returned immediately, unharmed and unaltered. We want the Council facilities responsible for the kidnapping dismantled. We want formal recognition that humanity is not subject to Council authority regarding internal affairs. And if we refuse, then you will learn why evolution made humans the apex predator of Earth, Stone replied. You will learn why we eliminated every other intelligent species on our planet before achieving spaceflight. You will learn why natural selection chose us to be the ones who reached the stars. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. 6 hours, Vextar said quietly. 6 hours to decide whether galactic civilization continues to exist? Admiral Zorak added, for the first time in Council history, representatives from hundreds of worlds faced a simple, terrible choice. Release the human children and accept the collapse of their authority, or fight a war that would likely destroy everyone involved. In the crystalline chamber where galactic law had been written for millennia, the most powerful governing body in known space discovered that some forces were beyond their ability to control, and one of those forces was coming for its children. The countdown to war had begun, and the galaxy held its breath. The final hour had arrived. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching tactical displays that showed the culmination of 70 years of human preparation. Across 17 star systems, human fleets waited in perfect synchronization for the order that would either bring their children home or reduce galactic civilization to ash. Status report, Stone commanded. All fleet elements report ready, Captain Morrison announced from the tactical station. Weapons systems armed, stealth fields holding. Targeting solutions locked on primary objectives. The main display showed real-time intelligence from Council facilities where human children were being held. The past 6 hours had brought disturbing reports. Rather than beginning release procedures, Council forces had accelerated the psychological conditioning programs. Human children were being subjected to intensive neural modification designed to erase their species' identity permanently. Communication from Sol Command. Lieutenant Chen reported. Admiral Kane's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression carrying the weight of decisions that would reshape galactic history. Behind him, the command center buzzed with activity as staff coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Rebecca, Council forces have refused our ultimatum. Intelligence indicates they're attempting to complete the conditioning process before we can act. We cannot allow our children to be transformed into something else. Stone nodded grimly. Understood, sir. What are your orders? Operation Homecoming is authorized. All fleet elements are cleared to engage. Priority targets are the detention facilities. Secondary targets are Council military installations. Tertiary targets are infrastructure networks. Kane paused, his expression darkening. Rules of engagement are unrestricted. Our children come home human, or the galaxy learns why that was a mistake. The bridge fell silent as the implications settled over the crew. Unrestricted rules of engagement meant that humanity was prepared to accept any casualty rate, pay any price, inflict any damage necessary to recover their offspring. Sir, Stone said quietly. Confirm authorization for Omega Protocol. Kane's face went pale, but his voice remained steady. Confirmed. If Council forces attempt to use human children as shields or threaten to harm them, rather than allow rescue, you are authorized to prioritize preventing their genetic modification over preserving their lives. The weight of those words was crushing. Omega Protocol meant that if necessary, human forces would destroy facilities containing their own children rather than allow them to be mentally enslaved. It was a choice no parent should ever face, but one that humanity was prepared to make. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Stone, she announced over the tactical network. Operation Homecoming is now active. Execute primary assault patterns. Priority is child recovery, but remember your Omega authorization. Our children come home as humans or not at all. Across 17 star systems, human fleets began moving simultaneously. Ships that had remained hidden for years emerged from stealth to reveal the true scope of humanity's military preparation. The vessels were beautiful and terrible, designed with one purpose, the complete destruction of anything that threatened human children. The first target was Council Educational Facility 7 Alpha, where Dr. Jennifer Walsh had delivered her disturbing message. The human assault group consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 48 destroyers, supported by specialized boarding ships designed for precision rescue operations. Target acquired, reported Commander Lisa Park from the lead assault ship. Scanning for human life signs. The facility's defenses activated as the human fleet approached. Energy shields flared to life around the massive complex, while defensive platforms launched volleys of antimatter torpedoes. The Council had never developed weapons specifically designed to fight human technology, and the disadvantage was immediately apparent. Human ships moved through the defensive fire with impossible grace, their advanced shielding systems deflecting attacks that should have destroyed them. Return fire from human weapons tore through Council defenses like tissue paper, reducing defensive platforms to glowing debris in moments. Boarding teams deploying, Commander Park announced as specialized assault craft launched from the human ships. These vessels were equipped with technology specifically designed to penetrate Council security systems and locate human prisoners. Similar scenes played out across 17 star systems as human fleets struck at Council facilities with devastating precision. 70 years of intelligence gathering and technological development had given humanity advantages that Council forces couldn't overcome. But the most important battle was happening in the Council chambers themselves. High Commander. Vextar watched tactical displays showing the systematic destruction of Council infrastructure with growing horror. Human forces weren't simply winning individual engagements. They were demonstrating technological superiority that made resistance futile. Damage reports, Vextar demanded. Fleet Admiral Zorak manipulated holographic displays with trembling hands. 17 major facilities under assault, defensive systems failing across all sectors. Human weapons technology exceeds our capabilities by factors we cannot calculate. Casualty estimates? Preliminary reports suggest 90% losses among defending forces. Human ships appear to be invulnerable to our standard weapons. The chamber buzzed with panicked communication as representatives realized the scope of the disaster. This wasn't a military defeat. This was technological annihilation by a species they had considered primitive. Emergency message from Educational Facility 7 Alpha, announced the communication system. The display showed chaos. Explosions lit the background as human forces tore through the facility's defenses. In the foreground, a council administrator spoke with barely controlled panic. "This is Director Malvex. Human forces have breached our perimeter. They are ignoring our surrender signals and continuing the assault. Please advise." Before anyone could respond, the image shifted to show human soldiers in powered armor moving through the facility corridors. Their movements were precise, professional, and absolutely terrifying in their efficiency. They weren't here to negotiate or accept surrender. They were here to recover their children by any means necessary. Broadcasting on all frequencies, announced a human voice over the communication system. "This is Major David Chen of the Terran Rescue Corps. We are here for the human children. Any council personnel who interfere with child recovery will be considered enemy combatants. Surrender will be accepted only after all human captives are secured." The transmission shifted to show human children being led from the facility, but something was wrong. The children moved with mechanical precision, their expressions vacant and compliant. The psychological conditioning had advanced further than intelligence reports indicated. "Status of the children?" Vextar demanded. "Neural modification is approximately 60% complete," reported the facility's medical director. "Reversal procedures would be complex and potentially dangerous." The human forces had reached the same conclusion. Major Chen's voice carried deadly certainty as he addressed the council directly. "Council representatives, our medical teams confirm that psychological conditioning has caused significant neural pathway modification in the recovered children. This constitutes permanent genetic damage to our species." The implications were staggering. From humanity's perspective, the Council had not simply kidnapped their children. They had begun the systematic destruction of human genetic continuity. "You have committed an act of genocide," Admiral Stone announced from the Retribution. "Humanity's response will be proportional to the crime." New tactical displays activated throughout the Council chambers, showing human fleets moving into position around major Council population centers. The message was clear. If Council forces had harmed human children beyond repair, entire worlds would pay the price. "Wait," Vextar broadcast desperately. "The conditioning can be reversed. Our medical technology can restore the children to their original neural patterns." "Unacceptable," came the reply from Admiral Kane. "You have demonstrated that Council medical technology can be used to alter human consciousness. We will not place our children at further risk." The human rescue operations continued with devastating efficiency. Facility after facility fell to human assault forces, their defenses crumbling before weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. But with each successful rescue, the extent of the damage became clearer. Thousands of human children had been subjected to psychological conditioning that would require years to reverse completely. Some might never fully recover their original personalities. From humanity's perspective, this was an attack on their species' fundamental nature. Broadcasting to all Council worlds, Admiral Stone announced, "The Galactic Council has committed acts of war against humanity by kidnapping our children and attempting to alter their genetic psychological patterns. In response, humanity hereby withdraws from all Council treaties and recognizes no Council authority over human affairs." The declaration sent shockwaves throughout the chamber. No species had ever formally withdrawn from Council authority and survived the consequences. Furthermore, Stone continued, Council infrastructure will be systematically destroyed until reparations are